Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video we're going to be doing some Grand Archive content for you. Finally going to pull the trigger on doing this game more consistently on the channel. I've been really enjoying playing it, and I've finally gotten to a point as a player and kind of as a member of the game to where I feel confident sharing content with you, where I can give like accurate information or at least give you stuff that is useful, whether it's more casual or competitive. So hopefully you enjoy this. If you're new to the channel from the Grand Archive community, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoy your stay. If you're a long-standing supporter of the channel through my Flesh and Blood content or through our Alpha Clash, thank you so much as always. So really quick disclaimer, I've been really enjoying this game. This game, like for anyone that knows my channel, if you're coming new from the Grand Archive community, I am a very like discussion-based content creator. I try to like... My feel of my channel is I want it to be like you're talking to like an experienced player at your LGS, and you're talking through different things, whether that's updates on the game, whether that's how certain tournaments have gone, new decks I'm trying, cards. Like I want to be kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of different things. So when it comes to Grand Archive, this game has scratched the same itch that Flesh and Blood did for me way back when, where it's just this novel game system with a very unique resource system. I love the art. I'm a huge like anime fan, always grown up on stuff like that, and so this game immediately from an art perspective, from a play perspective, has really drawn me in, and the game is just exploding right now in terms of player base, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So the first thing I wanted to do is kind of just do a video on like why I'm enjoying the game and why I think you should play the game in 2025. I did this video like a year ago, but I've been able to finally play the game enough now to where I feel like I can give like really good advice. So if you're new to the game and you're trying to find content showing you why you should play, this will be for you. If you're a prior member of my channel and you're like, okay, why should I care? This is for you. And then if you're just a general Grand Archive member, thank you so much. Feel free to comment down below and give extra reasons on why you think this game is so great. So it's 5 basic reasons, and I tried to mix them between you know, both play perspective and like general thematics perspective. So the first thing, and I'm gonna shout them out a couple times over the next couple of videos that I'm doing on Grand Archive. There's this new website, TCG Architect.com. I'll put that on the description below if I can remember to. They are basically trying to be like the one-stop shop Toolbox website for Grand Archive. They do all types of stuff from deck building. It's a deck builder. Their deck builder is great. It's the best deck builder Grand Archive has right now, not even close. They have like a card database. You can see community decks. You can go to tournaments and see like recent placing tournaments and like some of the deck lists from each one. We just had Ascent Taipei, which is a really big event. You can see some of the top deck lists that have performed, like each individual card. It will show you like element breakdowns, all that different stuff right here. So definitely check them out. But so the first thing I wanted to talk about with Grand Archive that I have been enjoying is champion playstyle diversity. So for anyone that's not aware, in Grand Archive, you have 3 basic elements that you start the game with, and it's either wind, water, or fire. That is your like level 0 character. They're called champions in this game, or your first element's called a spirit, and then you level up into a champion. So similar to my Flesh and Blood community people, where you start with a hero in play, imagine if your hero could level up and get stronger over time. So you start with like these spirits. I mean, if I even did it this way, I can show you here in a second, but they start with spirits where it's like wind, water, or fire, and that kind of gives you an elemental identity. Fire is more aggressive. We're going to do videos on this, on what each element entails and like why you should play each element. But at the most basic of form, fire is very aggressive, does a lot of damage, as you would expect, right? Kind of a little bit overstated on the offensive side. Wind is like this toolboxy type element that like doesn't try to stop what you're doing like water does. It's more of trying to suppress it, pun intended for any Grand Archive players out there, and trying to like slow you down a little bit while also having some toolbox answers both offensively and defensively with its cards. And then you have water, which is very control-esque. They affect the memory cost, which we'll talk about here in a second. They affect like their ability to kind of cheat value, so to speak, and also just straight up stop what you're doing. But their cards aren't as offensive leaning. They're trying to gain value over time in the early game and then play for a late game. So that's what you start with, a spirit, right? So regardless of what champion you're going to have in your material deck, which we'll talk about here in a second, you start with a spirit. So if I start with fire, let's say I want to play Lorraine. You can choose to play a fire Lorraine, which is very aggressive. So you're playing this warrior champion eventually when you level up into Lorraine, but you're playing the fire version of her, which is extremely aggressive, extremely in your face, trying to win in the early game type stuff. Or you could play like a water ally Lorraine, which is trying to slow the game down a little bit. Or you could play a wind Lorraine to try to have more toolbox. So you can take this one champion and then completely like flip it on its head in terms of based off what element you pick to try to change its general archetype, which is really cool because in a lot of TCGs you have, with hero-based TCGs, right, like a One Piece or a Flesh and Blood or even an Alpha Clash, like your identity kind of comes from your champion. And then you pick cards based off that. Well, your identity is kind of twofold. Your identity comes from your spirit and like what style of that champion you want to play, but also your champion selection, so to speak. So in this game, if I start with Wind, then you can level up into Lorraine, level 1, and then you go to Lorraine level 2, which gets you more abilities, which we'll talk about in future videos. And then level 3 is like the pinnacle of your selection of your hero, right? Where like in Lorraine, she does Crux. So you can go into one of these 2 level 3s depending on which one's in your material deck. So the baseline TLDR of the first point is champion playstyle diversity is very, very high in this game and allows you to really have a strong identity with the champion that you want to play or even with the element you want to play. You could say, I don't even want to have a level 3 Lorraine. I just want to do wind or fire Lorraine and only go to level 1 and just be really aggressive. Like you have that option. Or you can play a control Lorraine. And not every card game lets you do that in an individual deck, like flip it on its head completely. So very, very good. The second one is the resource system. I have no better way of showing this than without doing an entire video on it. There's videos out there. I'll try to, if I can remember to, link a couple down below. But there's this resource system in Grand Archive. You have a memory zone, as you can see here on the GIF, and then you have a like zone where like your allies go or whatever the case may be, whatever cards you're playing. Basically, you start the game with your spirit will dictate how many cards you draw. Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 6, depending on what you do. The 6 draw spirit allows you to mulligan basically, whereas the 7 draw spirit, you just have the 7 cards you get. And then each card has an associated cost. And I'm going to show that right here with like Ace and Protector. So the unique thing about a Grand Archive is they have a resource system where you have like memory costs and then you have associated like resource costs with a certain card. Memory costs come from your material deck, which you can see there on the left-hand side. And then resource cost typically comes from your main deck. Your material deck is like your equipment in Flesh and Blood. You start the material deck with 12 cards in play, 12 cards in your material deck, which you can pick in your material phase, where you basically like pick an equipment to use that turn, and that has a cost associated with it. And then general cards also have a cost. So these are like your material deck cards. They have a blue cost to them, and then your main deck cards have a yellow cost. So on turn 1, when you draw 7 cards, you can play your Ace and Protector for 4 resources. What you do is you will put 4 out of 7 of your cards down in your memory zone, as you can see at the bottom there. And then you will do what it's showing you right here in this GIF, which is they're picking a sword from their material deck to play, which costs 1. So they banish a random 1-cost card from their memory zone. So if turn 1 I go into my Spirit of Wind, which lets me draw 7 cards, and then let's say I draw into Ace and Protector, and I really want to play this card for whatever reason. Normally don't play this turn 1, but let's just say for argument's sake. I put 4 out of 7 of my cards down in my memory zone, and I play Ace and Protector out, which leaves 2 cards in my hand. Then I pass. Let's say on my next turn, for whatever reason, I wanted to play Blinding Orb, which costs 1 memory cost from my material deck. What you'll do is those 4 cards that you put down from Ace and Protector, you will banish one of them at random as a memory cost to then put Blinding Orb out into the field. Then you will pick the other 3 cards back up, which is called your Recollection. You'll pick the cards that you used last turn back up, and then you'll draw your card for your turn. Now, there's ways around that. There's cards that have floating memory in your graveyard. Like when you discard them, it'll have floating memory cards like Reclaim. Like when I use this, it goes to my graveyard, and it has floating memory, which means on my material phase, I can then use my floating memory to pay for that Blinding Orb instead of using the cards that I put down. So there's ways to get advantage. That is a whole video in of itself, and there is a more in-depth way to explain it and a better way to explain it. I will put it down below if you're curious. But the bottom line of point 2 of why I like this game is it has a very novel resource system, which honestly draws a lot of people to Flesh and Blood, right? There's a lot of agency in your hands and what you can play and how you can play them. And I think that that's a very awesome aspect of the game in terms of a TCG and something I think you should check out. I could do an entire video on that, and there's people that have done it better than me, but I will leave it at that very much. Point 3 is Toolbox deck building. This game is a lot about interaction with your opponent. You can put a lot of things in to affect what your opponent is trying to do. And like I said, similar to point 1 where you have champion playstyle diversity, you also have, toolbox elements of a deck. So like a good example is, a very staple win card is Dream Fairy. Dream Fairy is a mage fairy card. It has certain abilities, but it's not gate kept to just mages or just like wizard type champions. It's used in a lot of different wind decks because it has a lot of toolbox elements to it. Another very staple win card is like Windmill Engineer. It's another big one. So you're able to use like these toolbox cards depending on what your champion is in order to have the answer for your opponent. The other thing is like, and you see my sideboard, there's certain cards like Zephyr or like other toolboxy cards where you can pick or choose like, what do I want to be good into? And that is an element in most TCGs, but in this TCG specifically, the best way to describe it is like, there's a lot of metagaming into the meta. That's a funny sentence. There's a lot of metagaming into the format. Where you pick what you want to be good into, right? Like if I really want to be good into, a deck that, like a water deck that's trying to abuse floating memory, then in order to pay for its material cards very easily, I might use a lot of graveyard hate to banish cards from grave in order to slow down what water's trying to do. If I see fire is very much about discarding and like using fire elements in graveyard to empower its attacks on the board. I might use a card like Nullifying Mirror, which gets rid of all elements, in order to like stop fire's ability to buff itself. Or not Nullifying Mirror, Nullifying Lantern, I apologize. But using cards like Nullifying Lantern, which says cards in graveyards are norm elements, so it gets rid of the ability for its fire in order to stop what fire is trying to do by buff its own cards. So there's a lot of other examples I could use. One's probably better off the top of my head, but it allows you to have this toolbox and almost game into anything, I guess is the best way to put it. Like in a lot of TCGs, you'll play certain decks and you're like, this deck just sucks into certain things. Like for example, in Flesh and Blood, if I play, like Huntsman's just a bad hero. If I play Katsu and I play into like a really slow Guardian, there's not much ways I can help that matchup. Matchup's just kind of really kind of screwed. Whereas, in this game, if I'm playing like a Fire Xander, which is a very aggressive deck that doesn't have a lot of answers into people, like ask the question, it normally has a really bad matchup into a deck like Tristan, which is my deck, Assassin deck. There's ways you can put cards in there to help combat Tristan. It's not just like an auto loss, so to speak. So I really enjoy the toolbox deck building aspect of this game. So champion playstyle diversity, the resource system is very novel, the toolbox deck building is very big. The other thing I really like, and this is more from a game perspective, is a communicative developer. You know me, anybody who's ever watched any game I've ever covered on the channel, I am attracted to TCGs that have a very communicative developer on their side, where they're constantly engaged with the community, they're frontward facing, they're trying to be better. It's not like, I'm just going to say games, it's not like a Wizard of the Coast, or in my opinion like a Bandai or a Konami, where it's just kind of, they just do what they want, and they don't really care how it affects it, as long as they're making their money. This team is very good. They're very good on reprints. They're very good on like adjusting things for the community. They're very good on being communicative in themselves, like for their ban list. If I can find it here while I'm going through here. Like every time they put a ban list out, they're very big. Actually, there was one right there as I was doing it. Whenever they put ban restricted out, they have a category system where like category 1 is ban cards. Category 2 is like cards that are probably going to be banned at some point because they pose an issue with the game, but they're not banned yet. And then category 1, so category 3 is banned, category 2 is like heavily watched, and category 1 is like in the future we might want to look at these. They have explanations to each individual card on like, why did we ban this? Why did we do this? Why are we watching this card? They're very big on that. That's just one example. They also have proxy as vault cards, which basically means like if there's an answer that needs to be had in the format, they will like input a proxy as vault card, which means any player can like copy it or print it off as like proxy and use it in their decks. It's like their quick way of like helping a format out instead of waiting for a set to come out with an answer. They just do a lot of really cool things to help the community thrive from organized play perspective and from a casual perspective, and I really enjoy that. The next one is their OP system. They have a very, very good OP system right now, and it's growing every single iteration. They have what are called ascents, which for my Flesh and Blood people are basically like callings, basically monthly. This is their 2026 schedule upcoming, so they have Ascent Boston, 2025 into 2026. They just recently had Ascent Boston, and this week they had Ascent Taipei, which is really big. They have Ascent Niagara next month. They have Auckland. And then next year they have stuff in the Philippines, the UK, they have the US Nationals, they have Las Vegas Ascent, Los Angeles Ascent, all types of stuff. So super good organized play system. They have what's called their Omnidex, which is basically like your profile. I just recently got enrolled in it because we're starting to do local events that are like proctored, and you basically earn points and you can get rewards based off your performance that season. You also have a ranking worldwide, shows you how many events you've attended, all that kind of stuff. So super good organized play system that is very in-depth. It rewards players both casually and highly competitive, which I really, really enjoy. The last thing, and this is something I can't really show in a picture, so I apologize, but it's a very easy to learn game, but very difficult to master. And I know that sounds like a buzzword in any game you ever played that people say they like. But this game truly is. Like, the amount of depth in this game, it's the only game, and like, I'm just going to call a spade because I'm a Flesh and Blood channel, right? We're obvious here. It's the only game that is rivaled or is equal with Flesh and Blood in terms of depth of play, in terms of how every decision you make matters, how understanding certain interactions and fast speed stuff, and you know, you're in your recollection phase, all this different stuff is very important. It's a game where like you originally play it and you're like, oh, like, you know, this, that, or the other, like, oh, I understand how to play it. But the more you play it, you're like, oh my goodness, like, I understand these little interactions that just give me like this like incremental value that helps me win. It's very, very good. So the game is really, really fun. I really enjoy it. I just wanted to share like why I'm enjoying it, so people that watch my channel understand it, but people that also are new to the game can understand why I think it's good. It has a bunch of other reasons, but those are like the biggest ones, like champion playstyle diversity. The resource system has toolbox deck building to help have answers to almost anything in a way. Not like too much where everything's the same, but it's enough to where you feel like you have agency. Extremely communicative developer, great organized play system, and a very layered, hard to master like mechanics perspective. That's why I enjoy the game. If you're coming from my Flesh and Blood group and it's not for you, that's completely fine. I'm gonna be making content on it a lot. I'm starting to branch out in like what TCGs I play, and Grand Archive's kind of like the main thing I'm playing week to week now. With my move to Dallas and stuff, I'll also be playing it a lot there. They have a pretty good scene, so I'm super excited about that. I'll be doing other stuff, like I'll be doing elemental breakdowns here in the next week on talking about like why you should play wind. What does wind mean? Why should you play fire? Why should you play water? And then also going over like the champions that I play that I enjoy. And then also I'll be doing a little bit of updates on the game. Like we just had a recent ban restricted announcement that I want to talk about. That'll probably be the next video, honestly, because that's like the most closest thing that just happened while people still care about it. But yeah. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. If the game's not for you and you're going to put a, I guess, negative comment, that's completely fine. Like, you're allowed to have an opinion. But just make it constructive. Like, don't just be like, game sucks. More Flesh and Blood. You know what I mean? Or at least try not to. You can do what you want, right? Y'all are, as viewers, y'all have that ability to. But if it's not for you, maybe share it. You know, hit the like button. Just so other people that might are trying to find it, that are trying to enjoy it, maybe they'll be able to find it. So I would really appreciate that. But thank you all so much for watching. hopefully you enjoyed this. If you're coming from the Grand Archive community into my channel, welcome. I always tell people, if you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. But if you don't, I have a creator worksheet down below. I'll be building out Grand Archive creators in there as well. I have different tabs for every game I play, where if you don't like my content, you can go to that creator worksheet, look at the other creators in this game, find somebody you do like, and go like their stuff. I always like try to promote that, so you can at least find someone that's for you, and we can get more people playing trading card games in general. So thank y'all so much. Hopefully y'all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk.